Future Terps. Thanks for joining us. My name is Wendy Laughlin, and I'm the Director of the Health Professions Advising Office at the University of Maryland. The following is our presentation that we put together for Admitted Student Day because unfortunately we couldn't be together in person. Thank you for listening. Thank you all for joining us today for our session on pre-medical and pre-dental advising. We congratulate you on your admissions to the University of Maryland. Wish we could be with you in person, but given the current constraints, we're going to try to share with you as best we can the resources that we make available to our pre-medical and pre-dental students at Maryland. I'm here today with some of my students who are in the current application cycle for medical and dental school, and you'll get to hear from them shortly about how their journey has been and how HPAO has been able to support them along the way. What we plan to cover today is our services as an office, prerequisites, which are an important piece for students looking at medical and dental school, what students do outside of the classroom to confirm their interest in medicine and dentistry. We'll talk a little bit with you later on about data and how well our students do as they apply for medical and dental school. We support all of our applicants with a holistic committee letter, which we'll touch on. And then the students will talk a little bit with you about their own individual journeys and cover some common questions that people have. The Health Professions Advising Office at the University of Maryland advises students on their overall academic plans. We work alongside academic advising. So our office is more of a professional advising office, and students will also have academic advisors who will work with them on their specific course-related requirements. We work with students throughout their time at Maryland, as early as their freshman year, through alum, Terp for Life. And one of our main missions is to encourage students to grow in independence and to help clarify their own values and reasons for pursuing a health profession. I had the opportunity a couple of years ago to visit the University of Chicago School of Medicine, where we talked for the weekend about motivation in medicine. And it was on the heels of the University of Chicago doing a national survey in which they asked a question of not just Chicago recent grads, but recent grads from medical school across the country. One of the questions was, if you had this to do again right now, would you? And 8% of the respondents said no. And so we came together to talk about why that might be. It felt like a real crisis for students coming out of medical school and for medicine itself that so many people were choosing the wrong profession. And it will come as no surprise to you that it was more important that students choose to pursue a health profession based on intrinsic motivators like opportunities for altruism, intellectual and professional growth, exercising technical skills and autonomy in decision making. And extrinsic motivators like salary potential, job security, promotion, prestige, and credentials did not seem to be good motivators to sustain people in a very demanding profession that's people-centered and calls upon people. And it's an interesting time to be considering this. You know, people who are really at the front lines and have to you know, be the ones running into a healthcare situation when other people may be feeling like that's a difficult challenge for them to meet. So I'm very fortunate at the University of Maryland to work with students who really want to make the world a better place, one person at a time. And this is a really critical time for them to evaluate that that's what's driving them toward medicine. At Maryland, and probably most schools that you're looking at, pre-med and pre-dentistry are not majors. They're aspirations. So students can major in anything that they choose to. Probably 80% of our students major in the sciences, biology, chemistry, biochemistry, very popular. Increasingly, I have students majoring in bioengineering, public health sciences, but I've had students majoring in English, musical performance. The key is that there are a set of courses that students have to complete in order to apply to professional school and to be ready with the basic science competencies. So it's important that they complete those courses, and a later slide will be able to share with you what those courses are. And be good enough at science. Obviously, an interest in science and an aptitude for science are going to be critically important along this path. We also encourage students to explore outside of what we're doing every semester at the University of Maryland. We're excited when students are interested in pursuing study abroad opportunities, and we encourage students to choose their own path that works best for them. About 60% of all applicants take at least 1 year before they apply to medical school or dental, or before they matriculate in medical school or dental school. And so later on, we'll talk about the gap year, and one of the students on the panel has taken a gap year, and he can talk about that decision. But as we were talking about the prerequisites, I think it's important to understand what they are. And so this slide, and this is also available on our website, will show you what the requirements for medical and dental school are specifically. And it's a year of biology, 5 semesters of chemistry, including biochemistry, a year of physics with labs, a year of English, and then math and statistics. And then, of course, humanities, social sciences, and courses or experiences in manual dexterity, adding on for dental school. So beyond grades, schools are very interested in holistically reviewing students' readiness for professional school. And so you can see on this slide that there are a number of personal competencies that are very meaningful for students to develop. Integrity and ethics, reliability and dependability, service orientation, social, interpersonal, teamwork skills, a desire to learn, and resilience and adaptability. So how do students test those competencies? Most of all of that is done in experiences outside of the classroom. It's critical that students have exposure to the profession. So it's expected that they'll have some clinical exposure to patients, to understand that they like working with patients and they're comfortable communicating with patients. Communication skills are obviously a very important piece for this. It's important that they test their service orientation. How comfortable are they in working with people who have different life experiences, and also how comfortable are they going above and beyond. And we're a Research 1 institution, so it's expected about 90% of our pre-med applicants have some exposure to research when they apply to medical school from the University of Maryland. It's a little less common with our pre-dents. About 30% of them report that they've had some exposure to research. I mentioned that we do a committee letter. The committee letter is an opportunity for us when students get ready to apply to medical school and dental school. We have about 400 to 450 students who apply to medical school and dental school each year from the University of Maryland. And we do a holistic letter of evaluation for those students, in which we have the opportunity to introduce them to the committees and talk about their specific journey here. What did they learn about themselves? What did they learn about patients? What did they learn about the profession as they went through the University of Maryland and their experiences? All of our students are eligible. I'll talk a little bit later about that when I talk about data and how we account for how well our students do in this process. It's a highly beneficial part of the application process for students. It gives us the opportunity to explain any issues with a student's application, to really underscore not just what they've done, but what they've learned from their experiences. And the medical schools and dental schools reach for the committee letter as one of the very first things that they read when they evaluate an application. It really helps provide a lot of context and pull all the different parts of the application together. It's not a unique feature at the University of Maryland. There are a lot of schools that offer a committee letter, but it's pretty unusual for a school our size to do it. Writing 400 of those takes a good amount of our time and energy, but we believe in it. We know that it's an important piece for the students, and so we continue to do it. As I said, we prepare approximately 350 to 400 letters each year. I'm going to turn it now to our students. They're going to introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about their own journey, and we'll start with Justin.
Hey, Future Terps. My name is Justin Tabatabai. I grew up in Maryland basically my entire life. So I'm from Gaithersburg, Maryland, but I've been in Montgomery County for the past 20 plus years. While I was at Maryland, my major was neurobiology and physiology. That's one major, even though it sounds like it's two majors. It's actually just one long major name. I came in to Maryland with enough AP credits from high school, so I was able to pick up a 15 credit minor in global poverty. I graduated class of 2019, so last May, and currently I'm in my gap year, which I can talk about a little bit later on this presentation. But I am one of the current dental school applicants / matriculants of this cycle. I just committed to University of Maryland, Baltimore Dental School. So I will be attending there in the fall 2020. And one of the questions I got a lot when I was recruiting students for the honors, or just students in general, about why I chose Maryland was I knew once I graduated high school that I wanted to go to professional school. Both my parents are healthcare providers, and I knew that a career in healthcare was for me. And knowing that I wanted to go to school not only for undergrad but for professional school, I knew I needed to be smart with my money and be cost efficient with my education. So going to Maryland as an in-state was a viable option for me. It allowed me to apply to the professional schools I wanted to, and it was financially prudent in the long run for my future. One of the things that I hear a lot from Maryland kids, New Jersey kids, New York kids, anywhere where people feel like a lot of kids from their high school go to Maryland, that seems to be the only hesitation I hear is, I love Maryland. I love the school. I love the campus. The only thing I'm worried about, what I hear from high school seniors is I'm worried that it's going to be like high school 2.0, or I'm going to run into a lot of my classmates. But truthfully, that was one of my hesitations going to Maryland. And I think my high school had one of the most UMD applicants / acceptances. And I never saw or felt like I was confined to the same people. I always felt like Maryland was open and available for me to meet new people and join new clubs and have new experiences. My pre-health journey, I would say I wasn't always dentistry. So when I first attended one of these open houses, I thought I was pre-medicine or pre-physical therapy. So the first 3 years of college, I experimented in those tracks. And it wasn't until my senior year, I decided dentistry was actually the better fit for me. So that's part of the reason why I took a gap year, but I can talk about that later on.
Hey, well, hi everyone. My name is Mai again. I put here as my hometown, Silver Spring, Maryland, but I'm kind of from all over the place. Originally born in France, lived in the South, but I lived in Maryland the longest. And my major when I was at Maryland, or I currently am at Maryland, my major is cell biology and genetics. Again, sounds like two majors, but is actually one. I also did a minor in philosophy, and I'm graduating this May virtually. And my track was MD PhD. So why did I decide to come to UMD? There are multiple reasons, but I think one big thing for me was that it's a very large university with so many opportunities where I felt I could see myself engaging in my really diverse interests. And I think it's a really great place to kind of develop experiences in opportunities you might not have had in high school. So in my case, I was really interested in research, in global health, and in community service. And Maryland has been such an amazing place to really be able to gain a lot of experiences in those multiple areas. My pre-health journey, I was one of those kids that wanted to be a doctor ever since I was 4. And so I came into UMD, thinking I was going to pursue medicine. But then eventually my honors program that I'm in required that we do 240 hours of research, I think it was. And so I did that in the summer between my freshman and sophomore year. And I just absolutely fell in love with it and knew that I wanted to continue doing research for the rest of my career. And because of advising that I got both from the Health Professions Advising Office and from some of my professors, I was able to learn about the MD PhD career path and realized that it was kind of the perfect way for me to meld my clinical and my research interests. There's a picture of me here, and this was from one of the summer research programs I had. And later on, I'll talk to you guys a little bit more about how to get involved in research both on and off campus.
Thank you.
Hey everyone, my name is Darby. I'm originally from Norfolk, Virginia, so I am the few out-of-state people on this campus. I have a major in kinesiology and physiology and neurobiology, so 2 majors. Kinesiology is basically a study of how the body moves, for those of you that don't know what it is. And I'm actually graduating this year, although I'm a 5th-year senior. So yes, as Megan said, it's going to be our virtual graduation. And I'm on an MD track. And I am actually decided to go to University of Maryland's Medical School in Baltimore, and that's a big step. And why I wanted to go to UMD, for me, it's a little bit different. I do play soccer here at the University of Maryland, so for me, I was looking for both an athletic and academic prowess school, and I always wanted to go to a big state school. I like big state schools because they tend to be more diverse, and I get exposed to more people from a variety of backgrounds. And I'm a big people person, so that worked out in that case. And I was blessed enough to have a good enough scholarship for me to be able to attend this school and have it still be financially capable. As for my pre-health journey, I was actually a part of a magnet pre-health program in high school, and we were paired with Eastern Virginia Medical School. So I was pretty blessed to have that opportunity. And from there, I always knew I had an interest in the health field, but I kept my mind open as to exactly what would the right path be for me. As Justin said, I also considered a PA school for half a second. But the patient-physician dynamic was something I always enjoyed more. I think physicians have a strong role in comforting and educating patients and empowering them to take control of their own health. And I think that's extremely unique when compared to other careers. So that's kind of why I chose medicine.
Thank you. Shavin?
Hey everyone, my name is Shavin Thomas, and like it says, I'm from Columbia, Maryland. That's because where I've spent most of my time, but I was born in India, specifically Agra, near the Taj Mahal. But my major is physiology and neurobiology, and again, the class of 2020 virtually, and also a track MD. And why UMD? For me, community was a very big important part of why I chose UMD. It's near where I've lived most of my life, and it really allowed me to have opportunities of interacting with the community that I've been a part of for so long. And it's relatively expensive overall, and it allowed me to also be a part of my family in a more, I guess, intimate role than I would be if I was further away. And then my pre-health journey, it started around sophomore and junior year, where I personally had experiences with discrepancies in healthcare, both here in Maryland and abroad in India specifically. And from then on, I got involved with a program within my Howard County community, which was ARL, which allowed you to be exposed to different professions. And I became an ENT through that, and I carried on that throughout my college experience. And that just built upon itself. And it just made me want to become more involved in healthcare in general.
Thank you. Our students are amazing. And each one of the students that you've heard from was admitted to multiple programs and had a variety of options in terms of where they plan to go. next from the University of Maryland. I do want to emphasize that schools don't get students into professional school. They get themselves in. They work hard. They do good things. They do well in the class. They experience things outside of the classroom that are valuable to help them be sure about this path. But the process of applying to medical school and dental school is complex. There are deadlines and there are requirements and there are common applications that are confounded. And so that's where we come in to really help provide support for students. The committee letter is one thing that we do to help provide students with some sort of structure in applying to professional school. We do a lot of things along the way, including workshops, and we bring in alumni to talk with our students. We have student organizations, professional organizations, to help students learn from each other about the culture of being pre-med and being pre-dent at the University of Maryland. So all that to say, our students do very, very well as they prepare to apply for medical school. We talk about, and dental school, we talk about our data in a couple of different ways. At Maryland, we decided a long time ago that we would support all of our students through the process of applying to medical school. So the committee that I speak of supports all of our applicants. It's very competitive, will be no surprise to you, to get into medical school and dental school. And on this slide, you can see that the national average in 2019 was about 43% of all applicants gained admission to any U.S. allopathic medical school, 35% for osteopathic, about 55% nationally. The University of Maryland students, we look at that data in a couple of different ways. We never tell students that they can't apply or use our resources, even if maybe they don't have a competitive academic profile at that moment. So competitive profile is about a 3.5 average GPA and successful outcomes on standardized tests. So a competitive MCAT score, a competitive DAT score. So when we speak about Maryland students who the blue, those are all of our applicants, whether or not they meet that 3.5 and a competitive MCAT or DAT score. And then we also look at our applicants who happen to have those competitive numbers. And what we find is that about 60% in the last 3 years, 61% of all of our students who applied to MD programs gained admission. So that's significantly higher than the national average. And if they had competitive numbers, the 3.5 and a competitive MCAT score, that percent admit was closer to 90%. And you can see also for dental school, 88% of all University of Maryland applicants gaining admission over the last 3 years, and 95% of our competitive applicants gaining admission to at least one dental school in the last 3 years. So those are numbers that we're very proud of, and they reflect the hard work and the preparation of our students. This data slide will take you to information on our website that you're welcome to pursue on your own. You can see the URL is prehealth.umd.edu, facts and figures. And under the facts and figures, you'll see the same graph that I was showing you. And then you can see down here information as to the exact distribution of schools that our students have gained admission to over the last several years. So you're welcome to pursue, click on these, look and see where our students have gained admission. Our students are gain admission anywhere and everywhere. We have students in all of the top, almost all of the top 25 programs in the country. One of the top 25 is the University of Washington, and since they really don't take anybody out of the region, that's a harder nut for us to crack. But for the most of the other top 25 schools in the country, our students are there, matriculated, and doing very well. And in particular, the University of Maryland School of Medicine admits somewhere between 55 and 75% or 75 Terps each year. And that's a number we're very proud of. And there, just anecdotally, I've had the opportunity to attend their white coat ceremony in the past, and they coat 3 students at a time as they go across the stage. And there have been times where I've seen all 3 students on the stage at one time are all Terps. And it's a very exciting moment for me when I get to attend those white coat ceremonies. I'm going to turn back to the students now to answer some of the questions that if we were with you in person, we find that students commonly ask. And I'll start with this part with Maya.
Great. So one of the questions that are often asked are about alternative breaks programs. And for those of you who don't know, alternative breaks are like short experiences that happen usually during spring break, winter break, or the beginning of summer break. And students are able to go and engage in service learning. And what that means is that you go to a community, usually in the States, but there's a few international experiences, communities that are in need in different ways, whether it's food insecurity, development after disaster. There's over like 30 programs that people can get involved in. And you go there, you do service with a local community organization, and you also are able to learn from people in that community. So I participated in 2 alternative breaks programs. My freshman year, I participated in one that went to New York City, and we went to the Terrence Cardinal Cook Center, which is like a hospital in the city near Harlem in the area. And we were able to serve with HIV/AIDS patients there who had been there for a long time, just interacting and mingling with them throughout the week, learning about, stigma in healthcare, and learning about how to humanize the experiences of people who we often demonize in the media and who have been, for a long time treated terribly by society. So that was a really powerful experience for me. And my second year, my sophomore year, I led an alternatives breaks experience to Port-au-Prince, Haiti, where we worked with local community organizations to learn about how development in those kinds of settings occur and how international aid can impact communities in those cases. And again, that was a really powerful experience for me to really think about how we approach helping other people. And one of the biggest lessons I learned through that was that it's more important to empower community leaders that are already present than taking outside ideas and trying to force them on people when you don't really know their community. So participating in Alternative Breaks program is a great way to learn more about something that you don't really know about. And as future healthcare professionals, it's important that we are able to empathize and understand the plights that many of our patients may have coming in clinic. So I highly recommend getting involved in those if you end up coming to Maryland, and I hope you do. My second question is how to find research experiences. So as Wendy mentioned earlier, we are an R1 research university, and there are so many amazing PIs here at Maryland, or principal investigators. There's a lot of high quality research going on here, so I highly recommend that you all take advantage of that. Obviously, I am biased. I really love research, but I think it's a great benefit to be able to understand how scientific progress occurs in your future health professional goals. So at Maryland, it's actually pretty easy to get research experience on campus. You can just search department websites and find PIs that you're interested in, and you can just cold email them. Many of them will answer and will be willing to chat with you about being in their lab. And so it's very casual and very easy to get on-campus research experiences. When it comes to off-campus, we're in a great area such that the NIH is not too far away, Hopkins is not too far away. So I know students who have also decided to go to those institutions to get research experiences. And the last thing that you can do is also do summer research experiences. So I ended up doing one of those during my time at Maryland. And there's a picture of me like giving my oral presentation at Stanford, where I did where I did the summer research program, and I actually decided to go there for my MD PhD. So that was a nice coincidence. So you can also apply to online to summer research programs, usually in January, February of each year is when the deadlines are. And that can also be a great way to diversify your research experiences. So there's lots to do, and the people at the Health Professions Advising Office can also further advise you on how to best prepare your portfolio for those experiences. Lastly, can I study topics in the sciences and the humanities? The short answer to that is yes, absolutely. When you first come to Maryland, one of the first things that you're going to do is develop a 4-year plan, which will help you outline the coursework that you're going to get involved in throughout your 4 years. And if you are really passionate about studying something in the humanities as well, it's absolutely possible to fit that in with your science and pre-medical or pre-dental coursework. You just have to be really deliberate about it. I know, English majors who are also pre-medicine, and they're able to bring that together. And I myself, was a science major with a humanities minor, and it's definitely, feasible, even if you don't come in with a lot of AP credits. You just have to be really deliberate about it. You have to schedule yourself really well, be aware of the general education requirements that you have to fulfill. And, you can talk to your advisor as well about how to fit in all the coursework that you need in the time that you want. And in addition to that, a lot of people also take gap years, and they're able to, fit in more coursework, assuming that in their gap year, they'll also be able to get other requirements done as well. So, other requirements as in like the clinical and research experiences that you need. So it's definitely possible. You just have to be really prepared to plan for it.
If I could just add to that, we do have one thing I think that we do really well at the University of Maryland is in the freshman year, in the first 10 weeks, most students take some sort of a course called the Student in the University or a freshman seminar. And one of the objectives of that interaction is to prepare what we call a 4-year plan. And so this idea of being planful, planning for study abroad, planning for what your summers are going to look like, planning for how to integrate the sciences with the humanities is really well accomplished by laying out this 4-year plan very early on, because then you can see how your requirements for medical school or any of your honors programs or anything like that that you might be enrolled in, how that lines up alongside other requirements in your major. And you can sort of see it all laid out in black and white. And it's very comforting to know it's flexible, that, you might change from one semester to the next, but at least you have a plan to follow and see that it's all very doable, because it can be stressful looking at the requirements and looking at your major requirements and wondering how it all comes together. So the 4-year plan, I think, really helps with that. Did you have anything else you wanted to add there, Micah?
I think that pretty much summarizes it up. Yeah.
Okay. Darby?
All right, so hi again, guys. Just to kind of reiterate what Megan and Wendy just said about having the flexibility, I'm going to provide another example of it. So I actually started off here at the university as just a kines major, which means I did not fit the mold of the stereotypical pre-med backgrounds. My major is actually part of the School of Public Health. And just to give you guys an idea, there was only one kines class that overlaps with any of the pre-med recs, and that was BSci 170, which used to be 105 when I took it, because I'm old. And so the question I get a lot is, was it hard to fit in the pre-med requirements when you were just a kines major before I added my biology major? And the short answer is yes and no. Only because my original goal was to graduate in 3 years, and that made it challenging to try to fit in everything. But when I, opened up to staying not only 3 years, but an extra 2, I got a lot more space to deal with. But even then, just in the 4-year plan, having any major that you are passionate about and that you want to pursue is extremely doable. Just if you're on top of your scheduling and working with your advisors and really knowing where you can take certain classes and at what point in your life you're at. The next question I get a lot is working as a student ambassador for HPAL was, what kind of volunteering and shadowing experience should I get involved in? And when I say I get this question a lot, I mean a lot. And so short and simple again, there's no one type of experience that will get you into professional school. I think one thing that I want to drive home for you guys is to do things that you're passionate about, because it makes it a lot easier for you to talk about your experiences and really sell yourself when you're presenting yourself to these professional schools. So also experiences that you are more active and involved in for longer amounts of times are valued. You get to show your growth and talk about how you contributed over an extended amount of time, instead of just doing like hey, I did something for 2 hours one weekend and then a month later I did something short as well. You want to be able to show growth, and that's a big value that professional schools look for. And a lot, this kind of ties into it when people bring up, well, shadowing, like how can I, contribute with that? And you can still be active by asking your physician questions at the right times. You're still getting those clinical experiences, and you want to also, again, find those opportunities where you're having a patient experience and not just in the OR, because you want to be able to show how you in these schools. But yeah, next.
Thank you.
Yeah, and something else you might ask is, does HPAL help you find these experiences? And the short answer is yes. Like if you have something you're very interested in, we have an amazing website that you can look at, which offers a lot of clinical experiences, whether that's shadowing, EMD that I mentioned earlier, scribing, clinical assistant, all of that stuff, and also all volunteer opportunities. There's a lot of organizations on campus also and around campus that lets you be involved in the community as a whole. And Wendy, did you have anything to add with that, HPAL having more stuff than I mentioned?
Yeah, I think so. I think that your the Darby yes and no thing is going to be applicable here too, because one thing that we stress for our students is that even if I had the time to put 3,500 pre-med and pre-dents into individual experiences, which I don't, but even if I did, I still wouldn't do it, because I think part of the process for students is to test, how comfortable they are in building a network and identifying experiences that match their own values. And so we work to help students sort of figure out what that value match looks like. And then we present them with opportunities. So the listserv that you mentioned, where we have daily updates about opportunities in the area. We have connections that are commonly used by students. So, every hospital in the area has a volunteer program. We have a research associate program that we have articulated with Prince George's Hospital. I mean, there are lots of opportunities, but we don't match students with them. We present them with options. We wouldn't want all of our students to have the same cut and paste experiences. Just, with the four of you as an example of how very diverse your backgrounds are, that's, I think, fabulous. And that's like the Terp way, right? Everybody's having their experiences and following their heart. So yeah, that's what I would add to that. Thank you for tossing it back to me.
Exactly, and kind of bouncing off of that, one of my favorite experiences was on the listserv. It was a summer scholars experience at the University of Maryland School of Medicine. And while I could be involved in the research, and I was very intimately, it allowed me to be exposed to a lot of different researchers on the campus and also clinicians. So it allowed me to network around that campus, be shadowed them a lot, and then ask them questions about the campus itself. So branching off of what the office offers is a great way to really figure out your community and find new things.
Great.
And then what can I do over breaks? Same sort of thing. Find things on a listserv, but don't feel like you have to be limited to those experiences. You can branch out. You can do fun stuff, of course. For example, in the same summer where I went for research in Baltimore, I also went hiking with friends, and we did a road trip up to Maine. So you don't always have to be extremely productive all the time. Make sure to balance both of those things.
Good advice.
And then how can I make the most out of those experiences? It's something I learned later on, which was taking notes. Don't flip out your phone immediately and write notes like in a surgical room. Of course, you cannot do that. But have a physical journal, or later on, if you want to note down how you felt during a moment or some questions you want to think about. Like Darby mentioned, ask questions with the physician you're shadowing. just be in the moment, but also like think about how you can apply this later on in your life and just grow.
Thank you.
I think I'm the only dental panelist here, so I'm gonna answer the one question I get a lot about the pre-dent track, which is what dental specific advice would you give for pre-dental, or kind of what differences do you see between pre-med and pre-dent? When it comes to the academic requirements, pre-med, pre-dent is, you have your organic chemistries, your general chemistries, your biologies, biochemistry. Most of your classwork is essentially the same. One of the big things I noticed when applying to dental schools this cycle was they wanted to see this competency of manual dexterity. How well can you use your hands, and what hobbies do you have that demonstrate your hand-eye coordination to be a dentist? Personally, dental specific advice I would give is find a hobby during college that you can kind of tie back to your dental narrative when it comes to apply. I'm not saying like pick up some hand hobby that you hate just so that you can apply to dental school, but kind of find what crafts you like to make in your free time, whether it's knitting, whether it's sewing. Personally, for my application, I found that the University of Maryland um, Recreation Center has a bike shop, and so one of the programs of the Recreation Center is an intro to bike maintenance. So I had my bike on campus, and I signed up for this bike maintenance class, and so they gave us different tools to use to fix up our bikes over a 6-week period. So I talked about some of that using those bike tools and manual dexterity in my dental application. So it doesn't have to be arts and crafts. You can do something repairing cars, bikes, really anything you can think of that uses your hands in a fine motor way. Also, for pre-dents coming to Maryland, we do have several pre-dental clubs that I think are very conducive to your pre-dental journey. 3 clubs that come to mind are the Pre-Dental Society, which is just a general meeting once a month for pre-dent with information sessions, deans of admissions from various dental schools, stuff like that. So there's Pre-Dental Society, Global Dental Brigades, which is an international dental service trip where you go to a South American country, Central American country, and you provide dental services for a week with local dentists there, which is one of the programs I did. And then the third club that comes to mind is Miles for Smiles, which is a on-campus charity 5K. Basically, what the club does is they plan a 5K race on campus, and they fundraise donations in order to buy dental supplies and dental equipment for underprivileged communities. They send in those supplies. So those are 3 wonderful pre-dental clubs on campus, specifically at Maryland, that I very much so enjoy being a part of. And also the advice about manual dexterity, I feel like goes a long way, especially when it comes to applying to dental schools. The other question I've gotten a lot is, why did you take a gap year? So as I mentioned before, I was class of 2019, and personally, the reason I took a gap year was more so time management for myself. Senior year, I was working 2 jobs. I was on the executive board of a few clubs, and I knew if I added, interviews on top of traveling and all that stuff for professional schools, I personally would be overwhelmed. So I deferred my application cycle to my gap year. So in my gap year, these past couple months, I've just been working in a dental office, but I've been able to take off and travel to interview at several dental schools that I was interested in. And I don't think I would have been able to juggle that with my multiple jobs on campus and my coursework and some of my other senior year projects. So personally, it was a good fit for me. Some people swear by gap years, some people don't swear by gap years. Truthfully, there is no wrong answer. Just do whatever feels most comfortable to you and most conducive to your well-being and your future success. So if you feel like you have to really, really push yourself and you feel like you're going to be very stressed out, it's not the worst thing to take a gap year. I've loved the extra time. But if you feel ready, if you feel prepared, such as these other three wonderful panelists, and there's nothing stopping you, I say go for it. So that's my advice about pre-dent life and gap years.
And I would just add, thank you very much for that. And I would just add that, sometimes it is the best thing to take a gap year. For some students, they come in, they struggle in their freshman year, just getting used to being on campus. Their grades aren't what they know they can be. And then spreading out over all of your 4 years, the opportunity to sort of rebuild your academic story is something that medical schools and dental schools really take into account. And so rushing into an application at the end of your junior year, which is as early as it's possible to apply for medical school and dental school, but not giving your application, sort of your transcript, time to catch up with, how well you are now doing in school. I think, sometimes as advisors, we want to encourage students to take the gap year just to kind of build their whole story over 4 years, whether it be their transcript or maybe they decided late that they wanted to be on this path, right? And so maybe they only have 6 months worth of clinical experience, so they need to be patient and let those experiences kind of gel a little bit so that they can be ready. So I guess if your parents are listening to this as well, I would encourage all of you to consider what's best for your application. And the focus is really on self and picking the best time for you. I think that's the best advice. That's all that we have planned for today. So I want to thank my panelists very much for participating. This is information about our website where you can find some of the links that I had embedded in the overview. This is our email. If you have follow-up questions for any of the health professions advising staff, feel free to email us. 3 of the 4 panelists are current student ambassadors. You guys want to raise your hands if you're a student ambassador working with us? So they respond to emails that come through the student ambassador email. So if you have questions for students, please feel free to direct those to the students as well. Okay, well, thank you very much, and be in touch with us, and hopefully we'll see you on campus in the fall.
Go Terps.
Go Terps.
Go Terps.